Okay, so the way to write this program, it's pretty straightforward. You just keep track of the current longest word, and it'll start as the empty string, because that's the shortest possible word. So that's where we're going to start, because that's not really a word at all. And each time we go through here, we get a word, and so we say if the length of the word is greater than the current longest word, then it becomes the new current longest word. Okay. And then at the end, all we do is return the current longest word. Because once we've seen
repeat that sentence that you just said. You return
the current longest word. Because if we've seen every single word, the current longest word is the longest word in the whole file. Okay, that makes sense. Okay, so let's see if this works. Longest word. We give it our file because that's where we're looking, and then we just print that out. Forgot to put length. There we go. Longest word. Go install. And we run it. Of course, it doesn't work because I don't have the Moby Dick here. So copy // word. There. I saw a bunch of people seem to get that. So the issue here is that it thinks that this is all one word because it has no spaces, right? And so that's all it cares about. That's how it thinks in words, is things that aren't spaces. So then the question is, what if we could get rid of these? We don't actually care about punctuation. There's a couple ways we could do that. Does anybody remember the one way we've talked about? Replace. The problem, though, is that, so maybe I'll show you that real quick. So this is word or many words, because it could have many, right? And so we could say strings.replace, and then we'd get word or many words, and we'd replace question mark, because that was one of the things in there, with a space, and do it as many times as possible. Okay? And then we could use strings.field. So we could have another loop. And then word or many words. Okay, theoretically we should end up with a different answer. Oh, now we have swayings, coyings, flutterings. Okay, so we have to get rid of dashes, right? And so...
What is a coins?
I don't know. So we get rid of dashes, right? Okay, let's see what we get now. Oh, well, I guess it starts with that. So now we get that. Oh, okay, I guess we got rid of slashes, right? And you could do this forever.
What? I'm going to
stars and dots and so on. It could get out of hand really quickly. There's a way to do this. It matters with regular expression. There's also something we could do. Let's see. If we go to the strings library. This looks promising. Replacer replaces a list of strings with replacements. Right, string right S to W with all replacements performed. I think this is fun. Turns out a lot of packages use strings, but anyway, 70,000 of them. I don't think we know enough to be able to do this yet, so maybe we'll come back to this. This is going to be a little tricky. But we could use this guy to do it. But that way. So yeah, anyway, the other way is a regular expression. I don't know if I really want to talk about that too much. Did you guys do regular expressions for JavaScript?
Not much. We did like, there's some website you could go to. Anybody remember the name of it?
HTML5 patterns.
Thank you.
Okay.
And,
So you guys know their existence,
look
so
it
that
up.
may be sufficient.
Yeah. And we find like the built ones, but we didn't build our own.
Regex, and this is it in Go, and they have like a lot of variations of, replace all literal. Actually, you do string replace.
Question about regex with Go. On the web, JavaScript, it was like caution that this is like not performant, it can
Yeah,
really
it's
bog
definitely
things down.
slower.
Is it same with Go?
It's I mean, it's slower than doing other things, but I mean, it's not going to be much different than having 20 lines of these replacements. It'll be very similar. Think of it as very basic.
More performant than this, since the replace has to go through it every time for each
That's right.
instruction.
So it could be more efficient. Go's regex library is different than most others. It has tighter guarantees on performance, but for some cases it's not as fast. So what that means is normal regular expression libraries, many of them, there are some certain things you put in there which have really bad cases that end up being like really bad. And Go's is a little slower in general, but doesn't have as many of those cases. So it is usually, like it doesn't have this terrible case that blows it out of the water. But anyway, you can use a regular expression, and like I said, you can use this library. I don't think we need to spend a lot of time on that, because we could just keep adding things until we finally found it. But you get the idea. Any questions about this finding the longest word? Yeah?
Can you just go over the scanner part and how it's getting like random words from the text?
It's not getting random words, it's getting the words in order.
If you were to do a word search again, what we were doing before with these replaces, it would be more accurate word searches, because those long words that were combined didn't count towards your word count in the previous example.
You're right, that would be preferable.
Where did you import like the words, the text that you're using? Is it scanner.text?
It's in the main function.
Oh, it's from your main function. Moby.text.
Yeah.
So it's just because you ran it twice and it just went through those next parts automatically.
No, it always reads the whole file. It starts at the front of the file and goes until it reaches the end of the file. And then it's done. So it always reads the whole file. Because we open it here. When you do open, it starts at the beginning of the file. Scanner is going to do reads on the file until it reaches the end of the file, and then this will return false, and then you will have read the whole file.
I see it did two different things each time because you took out like some sort of symbol.
Yeah, I've been adding other, I can keep adding star and dot and other things, but
What about, and then -1, you can't put in any of the number, right? Like 0 would make an error.
yes, you can put other numbers. If you put 1, it means it will only do one possible replacement. If you do 2, it'll do 2. 3, it'll do 3. -1 means it'll do as many as it can. So if you had a string with 3 question marks, and I just put 1, it will replace the first one, but it won't replace the second one too. Okay. It's just telling you how many times it will do the replacement. So -1 means all of them. Replace all of the question marks. I'm replacing them with spaces, so you end up with space, 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 word, space, 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 word, and we already know that fields breaks things up by spaces. So it gets rid of all those extra spaces and just gives us just the words. Okay. We saw that when the original version of word count. Yeah?
So I did a range outside of that function, in the main function, of the word map.
You want to put your code up on Scratch and we'll just look at it, Bob?
Sure.
Oh, I think I know where you're going with this.
And it was reversed, well, I'll explain what I'm talking about.
While Bob's doing that, that, your questions of like that, what does the -1 do? That's like just learning, you know, and that's one of the things I've been learning these last couple of days is to use the docs and like, okay, let me go read about this and see how this one works. And
Yeah.
The function doc.
yeah, so there's a godoc.org. He's at that right now, and it lists all the documentation for different Go packages. So right now he's at godoc.org/strings, and that's going to list all the stuff for strings, but he could have done /IO or /IO/util, or if you just go to godoc.org, there's a big search box and an index, you know, and then you just start reading about the stuff, and you know, the fundamentals that we've learned, like how interfaces work, what's implementing what interface, that allows us to start understanding, you know, the receivers, the arguments that are taken, what gets returned, you know, what's the method. That allows us to start understanding the docs. But you look to the docs. The tricky part for me is just knowing, like when I look at the docs, there's like 80 choices or something, you know, and knowing like which two in combination do the magic that I need. And that's where it's nice having code examples like Caleb's shown us, like these things work well together. But then a lot of times there's examples right there, and Caleb's like, look at the example. It's like, oh yeah, right? And then you can see, okay, you know, there are some examples of replace, right? And you can see, oh, that's how it works. And you can even over in the top right push play. So it's right there, and it'll like show you, you know, output. You can run it. Huh?
It's a playground, you can change things there?
You
Yeah,
absolutely
you can change things right there. And
So
just
if I
use
change this
it.
to 3 and then run it again, we get winky, winky, winky.
And then
Yeah,
so, and then we'll get to yours in a second. It's on Scratch. So one of my questions on that last one was, he passed in the reader, and I was like, how's that work? So I had to go back. He did on 12 reader, IO reader. I'm like, what's an IO reader? Oh, that's the reader interface, and it's in the IO package, right? But like just looking at that, it didn't click in my mind. But when I looked at it in the docs, I'm like, okay. And why can the art reader, IO reader, you know, what's being passed in on that? It's the source file, because when we do OS open on line 31, and the documentation that OS, you know, open shows me that that returns a pointer to a file, and a pointer to a file implements the reader interface, and since that's implementing the reader interface, I could pass that into the next function, which wants to read something with the reader interface.
So
It's at the end of the scratch. So if you look at the bottom.
here, I'll paste it in here.
Okay. But I don't want you to replace all that, if you want to compare it.
I don't think we need that file. I have your start file. on my
Yeah, but I
phone
want to
out
compare
there.
the two. So when I did the range,
This doesn't look right.
yeah. Did I do the right one?
Oh, you did it this way. Sorry. I interpreted the comment incorrectly.
I didn't see it.
Got it.
You're reading top to bottom.
Okay.
So you did this loop?
Yeah, so.
You were trying to use word count.
Well, yeah, I was using the math that was made with word counts. But for K, the range counts math, it was originally KB, and the key is the word itself.
Yep.
I was just looking at the keys and comparing the lengths of those. And the key came, and then the value was the number of times the word was in the document. So I was just using the same thing before. But in yours up above, in the program you made,
Yeah. It's hard to read.
you're using a range, but now the word is second, it's after. And what's the first, what's the key for the?
Yeah, we're not using, in this other example, we're not using word count anymore.
Yeah.
What we're doing is we're just walking word by word, because this thing finds the counts of every word in the file, and we don't need to do that to find the longest word.
Yeah, it wasn't a very elegant solution. It worked, but I was just using the program I had before.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
But I wanted to understand in your document, in your program, the range line.
Yeah, we're not using range, we're using for
Yeah,
scan.
for underscore word range equals string dot fields.
oh, this.
Yeah, that line there, that's the one.
So what I'm getting back is a word, but the word has dashes in it and question marks and other things. And so what I was trying to do was replace all those things with spaces and then loop over that. Okay? So in other words, the word I'm getting back from scanner contains more than one word because I didn't get rid of all this punctuation.
But I want to understand line 21, that's all I'm asking.
Okay.
Can you explain how line 21 is?
Yeah. So strings.fields returns a slice of strings, and you range over it, and that returns an index and a value. The index here would be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and this is matches, Tinder, whatever it was, you know.
So strings.fields.
Returns a slice of strings.
And how many words are there?
It takes matches, and then imagine these are spaces here. Tinder.
Yeah, okay, so it considers all that one word.
This is what words or many words is right now.
Yeah.
I'm returning slice of string, and then it has matches, and then Tinder. That's what fields does. Right? Does that make sense? It transforms a string with spaces in it into two strings.
So only when you hit something that had some replacement done, does that iterate more than once, 21.
Yeah, because otherwise strings.fields, if it has no spaces in it, gives you one.
Yeah, if you commented out all the stuff with the punctuation, where you're trying to remove the punctuation, and it was still, yeah, those three lines. Okay, so the line 21 is returning what it considers to be the longest word. So strings.fields, word or many words, is a single word. That's one word that's been taken out of the text. With the punctuation and everything, but
The single word came from here. And then when we call this, since it doesn't have any spaces in it,
yeah.
this just returns a slice of strings with just one thing in it, which is word. So this word and this word end up being the same.
And what's the underscore value? What's the key for that?
The key here would be
I know we're not using it.
the
Well,
index.
yeah, anytime you do
Slice.
a range, it's key value.
But
So
there's
this
only
would
one.
be 0.
So it's 0 because there's only one
Right.
in it right now. Right?
Yeah.
There won't be any more than one because we're only looking one word at a time, right?
That's right, because none of these words, they're all guaranteed not to have spaces, and the reason why is that scanner doesn't give you things with spaces in it. So
So I just wondered why we use the range because we never have more than one to begin with anyway.
because when I did this, we do.
Well, oh, once you start taking those out, now you start putting spaces in.
Put this code up on Scratch too, and then Bob could like break it down and play with it.
So we're inserting spaces, and so now we have to look at a range.
That's
Okay?
right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Cool. I'll go get that out of Scratch.
Yeah. Okay. Let's try another exercise with files that will use a different interface than I have here. So there's a bunch of things that make working with readers easier in here. For example, there's a limit reader. Limit reader returns a reader that reads from R but stops the end file after n bytes. So say we had a file with 1,000 bytes in it. We could make a limit reader and give it 500, and that would only read, that would give us a new reader that stops at 500. Okay? So it would only read the first part of the file. And we could use that for things that we want to do. For example, if we had two files, we want to take the first 500 bytes from one and the second and the last 500 bytes from the other and merge those two together, we could use a limit reader to do that. Okay. But the one I want to look at is this multi-reader.
So limit reader will give you like the front and the back.
It'll
Do
give you
that
the
again.
front. The front. yes, it gives you, it limits the amount of data you can read out of something.
Okay.
Multi-reader takes in multiple readers and gives you a single reader, which reads from the first one until it gets to the end, and then starts reading from the second one until it gets to the end, and then starts reading from the third one. So it's as if you took 3 files and made it one big file. That's super handy, okay? So, I mean, does everybody understand this? Remember this notation? So in other words, this function takes 0 or more readers and creates a new reader out of it. So the exercise is, we have our cat program. Remember cat? It reads a file and puts it to standard out. Let's make it so that it can read any number of files. So I have, you know, my cat F1 space and then F2 and F3, and what I expect it to do is read F1, dump that to standard out, and then read F2 and dump that out, and then read F3 and dump that out, okay? And we want to use the multi-reader to do that. Everybody following?
And then after that, will we do multi-reader and write them all to one file?
We could do that if we wanted. In other words, like a merge or something. Oh, one other thing I should mention that's interesting. You know, we've been doing this format print line. I think I have 5 examples still in here. It turns out, let's go look at OS standard out, because that's where we've been writing stuff to. I think this may make a little more sense here. So we have these constants, and then we have some variables. So we have standard in and standard out and standard error. The interesting thing about standard out is it's a file. So that means it implements reader and writer, okay? So another way to write to standard out is to do this. io.copy os.standardout, and then you give it a reader. So let's say strings.viewReader. That's basically the same as doing format.print test, okay? That's basically the same idea. I'm writing to the standard out the thing I'm reading.
io.copy copies that as a what, file, or what's that one do?
io.copy takes a writer and a reader and prints it.
Okay.
And it reads everything from reader and writes it to writer. It's just like a file copy.
Okay.
I'm taking this input file and writing it to this output file. Works the same way, the same idea. And what I'm saying is, standard out is a file, so we can use it anywhere we could use a file. So before in our copy program, remember we did this copy? You could put os.standardout, and that would write the source file to standard out, right at your terminal. Okay? So that's another way of writing to the terminal. Is that making sense?
Yeah.
You don't have to do that if you don't want. It just would make some of your programs easier to write. So yeah, anyway, we want to make mycat work with more than one file. Okay. Everybody following? Maybe I should write this loop real quick. This OS args. How would I get, so I have mycat file name, and then I'm going to have, so say it's like F1, F2, F3, and so on. So we know 0 is mycat, and we know 1 is F1, and this is F2, and this is F3. So if I wanted to loop over all the arguments, how do I do that?
For a key value, is equal to range, OS args, and then you would do that, and then you could just underscore your key and just use your V, and there's your value.
minor change,
Oh, yeah.
skip the first one.
Skip the first one.
But we would get F1 and then F2 and then F3. And we can sort of generalize this opening to do that. Everybody following? So yeah, the program is to make cat work with more than one file.